Week, the Surgeon General also was asked on MSNBC about Joe Rogan's vaccine comments on Spotify, and he said that tech companies have an important role to play in stopping misinformation because they are the predominant places where misinformation spreads. Does the White House and the administration think this is a satisfactory step?
Our hope is that all major tech platforms and all major news sources, for that matter, be responsible and be vigilant to ensure the American people have access to accurate information on something as significant as COVID-19. That certainly includes Spotify. So this disclaimer, it's a positive step, but we want every platform to continue doing more to call out mis and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information. It's a positive step, but there's more that can be done.
So here we have another example of the federal government pushing censorship. So what we have here is a video of the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, simultaneously giving a pat on the back to Spotify for basically labeling all of Joe Rogan's future podcasts that have anything to do with COVID as misinformation. Spotify said they would put a banner that said, hey, this is controversial, click this link or whatever to get the real info, right? To get the official information. So she gives Spotify a pat on the back for that, but then she asks for more. She says Spotify needs to do more.
General also was asked on MSNBC about Joe Rogan's vaccine comments on Spotify, and he said that tech companies have an important role to play in stopping misinformation because they are the predominant places where misinformation spreads. Does the White House and the administration think this is a satisfactory step?
Our hope is that all major tech platforms and all major news sources, for that matter, be responsible and be vigilant to ensure the American people have access to accurate information on something as significant as COVID-19. That certainly includes Spotify. So this disclaimer, it's a positive step, but we want every platform to continue doing more to call out mis and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information. It's a positive step, but there's more that can be done.
So it's a positive step, but there is more that can be done. And what is this more she's speaking of? The more is she wants more censorship. She wants more censorship. So there we have the White House press secretary hinting that she wants more censorship. That's Joe Biden's representative. That is the voice of the executive branch of the federal government of the United States pushing for censorship. And here we have a opinion piece out of the New York Post. Whoever wrote this opinion piece, this guy, David Harasani, I don't know. Sorry for butchering your name, David. For the most part, you have the right idea. One of your opinions I disagree with, but that's neither here nor there. The gist of it is the First Amendment. The federal government, has no right, no business rooting out misinformation, flagging misinformation, asking tech companies to remove things off their platforms. The federal government has no place doing that. It's a direct threat to our personal freedoms, to our humanity, to our human rights of freedom of speech. So here's an opinion piece. Government has no business rooting out and flagging misinformation. We're going to skip around this article a little bit, but I'm going to read the more important parts. It's not a very long article. It's like a 2-minute read. So, asked by MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski about the alleged misinformation spread by the popular Joe Rogan Experience, U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy responded with a homily about how we must root out misleading speech. Quick side note, the MS in MSNBC stands for Microsoft. Bill Gates, the owner of Microsoft, is very, very heavily invested in vaccine technology. Have you wondered why you've seen him on the TV the last few years? Talking to us about public health. Meanwhile, he's a college dropout billionaire whose mommy got him his first big contract for Microsoft and is just a billionaire tech bro, right? Like, why is he talking to us about public health? Well, maybe there's a little hint there. Maybe it's because of Microsoft NBC. Billionaires like Bill Gates love to buy themselves media coverage. Just a quick side note there as to why MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski is so concerned with misinformations surrounding vaccines. Quote, misinformation. Murthy's comments wouldn't be so grating if it weren't so obvious that the Biden administration has been pressuring big tech companies who oversee huge swaths of our daily digital interactions to limit speech and set acceptable standards. You might remember that last summer, Press Secretary Jen Psaki casually informed the media that the White House was flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. Can you imagine if Trump did the same, blah, blah, blah. So he's pointing out the double standard. The double standard exists on both sides of the aisle. Both major parties are complete hypocrites. But this is also pointing to how it's a long string of pressure from federal government. Already a last year at this time, she's talking about flagging problematic posts for Facebook. So the government's giving a list of social media posts that they don't want to see. They want to be removed. White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield also argued that social media companies should be held accountable for the ideas of those who use their platforms. President Joe Biden, who previously accused Facebook of killing people, this month made a, quote, special appeal to social media companies and media outlets. Please deal with the misinformation and disinformation that's on your shows. It has to stop. He's such a boomer. He's talking to big tech and telling them about misinformation on their shows. Holding people accountable for what is published on the platforms. That would no longer be a platform, it would be a publisher then, right? The big tech is shielded liability-wise from what's on their platforms because they are a platform. They don't curate, they just put it out there. It's up to you what you want to write, and it's put out there. A publisher, like someone who is publishing books or something like that, is going to choose who they want to publish, right? And when you're choosing who you want to publish, that opens you up for liability. Because if you're publishing misinformation and it's proven, then you could be sued, right? Whereas a platform, there's a liability shield. So if I go on Facebook and I make wild accusations, Facebook can't be sued because I made wild accusations. If I write a book full of wild accusations and Penguin Publishing Press publishes my book full of wild accusations, someone could sue Penguin for all the wild accusations in there. There's a difference there, right? And second, Facebook is killing people, Joe Biden. You're fucking killing people, dude. You deny people health care. You start major wars. You're pitiful, dude. You're obviously pitiful. You're a servant to the banks. You're a servant to the military-industrial complex. You're a servant to the weapons contractors. You have like a 50-year history in Washington of misery and pain and suffering. You kill people, Joe Biden, not Facebook. Get the fuck out of here. So this is where his opinion, the author's opinion, gets a little shot. I happen to believe that tech companies should enjoy unencumbered free association rights and be able to keep or kick anyone they desire from their products. But that position becomes unsustainable if these same corporations would often spread tens of millions each year in Washington rent-seeking and lobbying for favorable regulations also take order from state officials on permissible speech. And no authentic journalist would turn to a government official for guidance on the matter. I agree with that. If you're a real journalist, you don't ask daddy what you're allowed to do, okay? And second, completely wrong about big tech being able to kick people off their platform. That's a horrible opinion to hold. Yeah, technically by the letter of the law, they have terms of service agreements, and if you break it, they can get rid of you, right? But I believe, like any logical human should believe at this point, that social media has now become the modern town square. If you want to get your message out, if you want to have a business, if you want to be a public personality, if you want to express yourself in a meaningful way in the year 2022, you need to do so through the internet as well as in real life. If you're banned from social media, if you're banned from the internet, and you still think you have the freedom of speech of someone who isn't, you're absolutely wrong. You're absolutely wrong. We should not be banning people from the internet. Well, let's read on. It's bad enough that media outlets have abandoned any commitment to upholding liberal ideals of open discourse, as they not only act as hall monitors who hound tech companies into self-censorship, as virtually all of them did when the New York Post broke the Hunter Biden story before the 2020 presidential election. Self-censorship is as pernicious as any other variety. Great point there. These media figures are getting berated. These big tech corporations are getting berated by government officials into doing censorship. Case in point, the New York Post broke the Hunter Biden story. Facebook and other big tech companies made it illegal or made it impossible to post or spread a link linking to the Hunter Biden story. This is absolutely ridiculous. They said it was misinformation, Russian misinformation, etc., etc. Meanwhile, the story was 100% accurate. Okay? So can you now see how censorship can be used to deceive you? It's not being used to protect you. It's never used to protect vulnerable groups. That's what it's always said it's going to do. There's bad people. There's powerless people. We need to censor people to protect those powerless people. It's such a crock of shit. It's such a crock of shit, dude. Allowing the state to participate in rooting out misinformation, however, sets a dangerous precedent that can easily be abused by those in power. Even if we concede that Murthy was acting in good faith, as we've unfortunately learned during the coronavirus pandemic, health officials will often pass on bad information or politically motivated information. You think you agree with the Democrats, let's say. Okay. You believe in the Democrats, you're pro-censorship. Next election cycle, the Republicans take power. Now they're censoring all the things you agree with. What are you going to do about it? You're pro-censorship. The power balance is swung in the other direction, and now you're censored. Oh well. You don't have an opinion anymore. Or you do, but no one can listen to it because you're censored. People literally can't see 1 foot from their face with stuff like this. We went from, we're going to censor Alex Jones, to censor RFK, to censor Donald Trump, and now we're trying to censor Joe Rogan. We're going to censor everyone. Why not? How about we have an internet where you can only pick between 4 emojis of happy, sad, and not even sad, just only happies, only thumbs up, right? Come on, guys. We need full expression of ourselves. And you need to be able to express yourself on the internet to have a meaningful participation in the year 2022. Let's be fucking serious about that. Moving on. Moreover, the definition of misinformation is also conveniently expansive. What was once a conspiracy theory can quickly become a plausible possibility. As we recently learned when evidence emerged that our government may have helped hide and suppress news about the Chinese origins of COVID. Facebook had simply banned such talk for a year. Yesterday's conspiracy theory is today's fact, is what he's saying. We're giving power to people who shouldn't have this kind of power. It's un-American to give this kind of power out. And the reason we're giving them this power is such an abstract idea that the people who are going to assume this power and take it over us are going to be able to use it for whatever the fuck they want, which really means to entrench their own power and further their own profits, which is how it always happens. Alleged misinformation is often perfectly reasonable inquiry or theorizing. Even if it isn't, the state is not the final adjudicator on the veracity of speech. And anyway, we're free to discuss every harebrained idea we desire. Health officials and the media have done more to corrode trust in science and government during the COVID era than any conspiracy theorist on social media. Americans aren't sure where to turn, so they often turn to unreliable sources. As with the media, however, the best way for Murthy to fight the spread of undependable information is to rebuild the credibility of his own institution. What we say or don't is none of his business. That's a great way to wrap it up. The reason why people are going to Joe Rogan, there's a credibility issue in this country. No one trusts the government, Congress, any of our institutions anymore because they have proven themselves to be corrupt liars, beholden to corporate interests and billionaires. The media is supposed to be an institution separate from government that is supposed to be a watchdog of government. But guess what? Billionaires bought our government. And what did they do after they did that? They bought our media. So the watchdog, the media, is now the lapdog, okay? So we have the federal government calling for censorship, trying to bully big tech into towing their partisan lines, and their partisan lines are towing their corporate lines because their corporate donors pay the bills. The federal government pushing censorship should be one of the scariest things. This is happening at the same time as them prosecuting like the only real journalist of our generation, Julian Assange. Think about it. They're prosecuting, silencing people who tell the truth. They're making it almost impossible to spread information through the internet. The internet was supposed to be this great equalizer, this free and open source, a way to communicate for humanity that was beyond governments and beyond culture. And now you have the United States government and their cronies around the world doing everything they can to make sure that freedom of speech is put into a wooden box and lit on fire.